The following story is true. The names have been changed at the request of the survivors. After all, this is a horror fiction podcast. PseudoPod, episode 693, March 13th. Oh yeah, we know, 2020. This week's stories, Flash on the Borderlands L. That's 50. Knowing is half the battle, remember? Flash Fiction Contest 6 winners. Hello everyone, welcome to PseudoPod, the weekly horror podcast. I'm Alistair, your host, and I'm genuinely really impressed I just found that L is 50 in Latin. Anyway, as promised, here are the 3 stories which are winners of our last, and by last I mean most recent, we will be doing it again, Flash Fiction Contest. I'm just going to jump straight in because they're great and they deserve it. Our third place story comes to us from Chantal Bone. Chantal can pass as normal until she sees a blinking cursor or an unattended pen. Vancouver, Canada grudgingly lets her live there as long as she slowly drains her life force into 2-dimensional drawings and puppets that are used to entertain children. While not pursuing her career in animation, she is a writer and comics artist, and has previously been published on Podcastle and New Myths. Your reader for this story is Hugo Jackson. Hugo is a non-binary fantasy author with the third novel of his Resonance tetralogy series being released in April this year by Inspired Quill, and most of the time is also a big grumpy leftist furry. So, without further ado, they have a story for you. And I promise you, it's true.
The Animals Are Becoming by Chantal Bone, narrated by Hugo Jackson. It all went wrong when my cat started walking on 2 legs. He fell, over and over again, yet each time he got back up on 2 feet. At the time I thought it endearing. Mittens always knew when I needed a laugh. Then I saw a deer standing in the woods. A proper deer should have run when seeing a human, but this one just stood there like some strange, stretched giant and stared back. Next were the birds. At first I didn't notice the changes. Notes shifting in pitch, chirps stretching and straining. It was only when the cat also started speaking that I realized birdsong had lyrics now. Mittens didn't have a mouth shaped for human speech. Familiar words were twisted into grotesque parodies of themselves, splitting open the English language to expose its component parts and base, guttural sounds. It grated. I retreated to another room whenever I heard the cat coming. A peculiar smell permeated the air. The papers were rampant with speculation. Some said it was the smell that was changing the animals. Others said that the smell came from the animals. I didn't know what to think, I just wished it would go away. I put the cat outside and locked the door. When Mittens was tall enough, he knocked. I answered, eventually. He extended what was once a paw, which he clearly intended for me to shake. Ingrained manners urged me to take it before disgust's better judgment could dissuade me. He introduced himself with a name that was not Mittens. The name wasn't something I could pronounce at all, nor did I wish to try. His ingratitude stuck in my craw. I told him that he didn't know Tuesday from a teacup, so how could he know anything at all, much less what to call itself? Although no one really knew what the cat was now. It wasn't finished becoming it. I had my suspicions. The cat has been sneaking into my bathroom at night to use my razor. Whatever's changing it is apparently not enough anymore. It's choosing this now, going against its very nature. But I won't let it forget what it is, no matter what it becomes. Sometimes I think they're trying to imitate us, that soon we won't be able to tell them apart from real humans. At other times I think they're becoming something else, something more than human. Why blend in when they can supplant us? The cat tried to embrace me, said it loved me. I pushed it away. It got back up. Always it gets back up, but it didn't try to touch me again. I told it to walk on 4 legs as God intended. but we live in godless times now. I never found out what the cat was becoming. I stopped it from changing further. There are still the others. I read about them in the papers. I'll stop them from becoming too.
It's impossible not to talk about the apocalypse right now. Not because we're in one. I sincerely don't believe we are, although it does feel very apocalypso in tempo out there right now. But because we're alive and human, and as a result, we're always thinking about what happens when we aren't, and won't be anymore. Just doubly so right now. One of my earliest memories is watching the old movie War Games. I've talked before about how Professor Falcon was an early influence on me, but I haven't talked about how his serene comment about who might be next after we've gone hit with me, because it hit very hard. Rocked me to my core and spurred a few years of profound apocalypse research that included words like quatrain and Nostradamus. We're still here though. We're still here, and sometimes that may not be what we want, but it's what we have. So let's make good use of it, because if not, the cat is right there and she knows it's her turn next. A quiet apocalypse, a slow retreat into the west. A very different kind of world, civilized, yes, but red in tooth and claw. And that brings us to Kit Malone and Kitty Sarkozy. Our second place story, In the End We Will All Be Loved, is by Kit Malone. Specifically, Avery Kit Malone, a doctoral student, an insomniac, and most definitely not a cultist trying to bring forth the growing chaos. I mean, that about clears that up, so I have no further questions. Kit's short fiction recently appeared or is forthcoming in Grimoire, After the Pause, A Photic Realm, The Gateway Review, Unspeakable, a queer gothic anthology, and other venues. Your reader for this story is Kitty Sarkozy, speculative fiction writer, corporate customer service trainer, voice actor, professional robot girlfriend, and native of Atlanta, Georgia, y'all. She has a rather non-specific set of questionably useful skills, a plethora of hobbies, or plethora, for those of you on this side of the Atlantic, and almost enough cats. When not writing or on the phone, she stays entertained as a background actor and rogue. Follow her adventures at kittysarkozy.com. So, Avery Kit Malone, Kitty Sarkozy, and a story. A true one.
In the End, We Will All Be Loved by Avery Kit Malone, narrated by Kitty Sarkozy. Dear Mommy, today I found a still alive snail on a piece of grass. I did not go very far outside, only just past the door, only for a minute, to look outside and see if I could find you coming back. I took the snail inside with me. I hope that is okay. I put it in a jar so it wouldn't put slime on the floor, and I gave it some pieces of grass, which I hope it will eat. I hope it is okay, because now I have a still alive friend with me while I wait for you. I am thinking about how I miss Daddy. I hope I will see him again, even though you said I wouldn't and you hit me on the mouth when I said I didn't want to move away without him. I think that maybe if you talked, you would be friends again. I know you said that Daddy made us sin by cheating, but you also told me God forgives us if we pray. Right now, I'm not scared, even though I would like to see you and Daddy. I know there's nothing to be scared of, because you said that when Jesus comes back to take us away into the sky, we will all go to heaven and be loved by God. I shouldn't say this, but I think I'm kind of afraid to see God. I hope I get to be here a little bit longer. I did not know that the angels would be in big metal circles when they got here from the sky. They came down after you went to the store. I didn't know they would look like that. It's hard to look at their faces. I think they would look better if they had lips, then they could smile at least. I'm also scared of how they sound like a grown-up boy screaming. I am sorry to say that I'm hiding from the angels, Mommy. Maybe you will hit me for telling you, but I hope they don't find me. I saw Ellie from next door outside when I looked through a window, and an angel found her, and it did something with its claws. I hid because Ellie was screaming really loud, and it made me cry. When I looked again, Ellie was lying down and not moving, and her stomach was gone, and I could see red stuff inside her, and I knew that she was dead. and she went to heaven. Mommy, I know you said you would be right back, but I am hungry and people outside are screaming and going to heaven, and it has already gotten dark, and also now I can hear angels right outside. Please come back soon. I will show you my drawing I've been working on of me and you and Daddy in heaven. You and Daddy will be holding hands. I think angels are at the door.
Here's what Kit had to say. Most of my childhood happened in the American South. Something that I really noticed in the rural communities was this idea that authoritarian violence is kind of an act of love. You see it in the conception of God. You see it emulated in how people raise their children. This is what I was thinking about when I wrote this story, this equation of violence to love, God to parent, in the backdrop of an alien invasion. Trauma is locked into the shape we learn to make it to survive. In this instance, that shape is absence, without certainty, the chance of redemption, of rescue, however small, the shape of possibility, if you will. The thing that kills me here is how brilliantly Kit manages to portray the lead's own self-delusion, because, make no mistake, this poor, terrified child knows they don't have long, and knows they can't look it in the eyes, and that self-delusion, that abject love of their parents, the idea of hiding inside that shelter even as it shrivels and burns around them, that's bravery. And bravery never takes the shape we learn to make it, only ever the shape we need, even if just for a few seconds. Chilling, and very well done. Thank you both. And finally, we have Lauren Ring and Alexis Goebel. Lauren is a perpetually tired Jewish lesbian who writes about possible futures, for better or for worse. Her other short fiction is forthcoming from Helios Quarterly, and when she isn't writing speculative fic, she is pursuing her career in UX design or attending to the many needs of her cat, the splendidly named Moomin. Alexis Goebel, your reader for this story, is a multi-class disaster human living with her husband in Cincinnati. When she isn't prepping art for Custard Wonders, thanks so much for that, Alexis, designing pins for Pinning.com, or yelling about TV into a mic for Bald Move, she dabbles in a revolving menu of hobbies and art projects. To list them all would be sheer madness. Like any good bisexual, she has a lot of jackets, and you can find her on Twitter at AlexisOnPaper. So, without further ado, Lauren and Alexis have a story for you. We promise you it's true.
Heart of Gold by Lauren Ring. Narrated by Alexis Goebel. My mother tells me that in the East they practice kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery pieces, by filling the gaps with golden lacquer. Her closest relation to Japan is the sushi she ate once before going vegan, but she thinks that hiding the cracks is a beautiful way to make something out of nothing. I ask her why she thinks they're hiding anything. She ignores me and asks me if I want to be something someday. My mother, she of the essential oils and herbal supplements, tells me that I am broken. She takes all of my pills away, lest they poison my brain. I know she has my best interests at heart. When I wail in the dark of night, she holds my hand and tells me that it will all be better soon. Then she leaves, and I cry myself into a fitful sleep. My mother tells me to drink up. She holds out a steaming mug, the kind she uses for her endless teas and elixirs. I pour the boiling concoction down my throat, wanting to please, expecting to taste honeyed chamomile. Rough clumps of powder make me gag. I cough and spit some of the drink on the floor, where it sizzles through the carpet. My mother frowns. I plaster on a smile and drain the cup. My mother, clapping her hands in delight, tells me that it's working. The liquid cracks apart my capillaries and fills them with molten gold. My veins glimmer against my white skin like delicate metalwork, and my sleepless, bloodshot eyes now shine. I admire myself in the mirror even as the gold burns me from the inside out. It's getting hard to breathe. I know something has gone wrong, but my mother tells me that I am beautiful now.
There's a Hemingway quote, which I never quite remember fully, but which boils down to, "We are all of us broken by life, and after we are stronger in the broken places." Big Ernie had his heart in the right place when he wrote that. It's a less toxic keep calm and carry on, a version of The Only Way Out is Through Alanis Morissette didn't cover. I used to take a lot of comfort from it, and to some extent I still do. As I talk to you now, I am 2 weeks off an inhaler I had to use for 3 months due to a stress-related chest infection. I've lost some weight, I've begun exercising again in earnest, and lots of nagging, unpleasant, small to medium things are starting to fall away. We've prioritised self-care in a way I don't think we really have before, and it's working. Full disclosure, I'm not sure how it's going to survive contact with COVID-19, but we'll adapt and overcome. I mention this because I don't take as much comfort from that Hemingway quote as I used to. It's not that I don't feel strong, I do. But having recently survived trauma, the idea of surviving trauma because you're too ornery not to is less of a cornerstone of my brain than it once was. A concept that began when Henry Rollins first pushed the words, "I know you," into my head. See, Rollins is, from a cultural point of view, my older brother. He taught me a lot about how to be me. And a lot about what not to do. Now, I don't value my scars, but I do value the lack of pain I have and the space in my head I feel, because it's easy to fetishize damage, especially as a coping mechanism. It's easy to live in that moment, to dine out on it, to live in trauma, both ultimately positive and ultimately negative, because it's a moment of extremity, both of extreme honesty and extreme trauma. Remember that terrible ferry crossing? Remember the time I broke my arm? Remember the fire? You live there. You never move past it. Sometimes because you can't, and sometimes because you don't want to. That's what the mom is doing here in the most extreme of ways, killing the future to preserve the past, choosing to fetishize what's gone before, to memorialize that which is memorialized every day in existence. Not seeing the person, but seeing the scar. Seeing how pretty she can make it, how closely she can match the wallpaper. Chilling work on so many levels. Well done. We rely on you to pay our authors and cover our server costs, amongst very many other things, and you've done an incredible job for years of doing just that. Our current goal is to expand our finances to the point where we can pay the only staff we have that we don't pay, and that by and large no one does, and that's slush readers, or associate editors as they're also known. These are the heroes and heroines and epic protagonists of genre fiction, people who engage with every submission, every author, who champion stuff up the line, who provide feedback for stuff that doesn't work, and who deal with the horrifying toxic nonsense that does inevitably wash up on everybody's shores. They deserve to be paid, and they're the big thing we're crowdfunding for now. So if you can help out, please do. There are 3 ways you can do so. The first 2 are cunningly split between PseudoPod.org, where you can click on Feed the Pod and donate or subscribe, and if you subscribe you get all manner of goodies. Same's true on Patreon as well, but there are a couple of extra levels with a couple of extra goodies. Alternatively, if you don't have the money spare, and I know at the moment a lot of people don't, you can maybe spare us some time. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcatcher is du jour this week. I'm a little behind in that regard. Write a blog post, get in contact with us about maybe coming on your podcast or being interviewed by you. Or just tweet a link to an episode you liked. It all helps, more than you can possibly imagine. And that stuff, like I say, all it costs is time. So if you can help out, please do. And if you already help out, thank you. We'll be back next week, when, as now, we will be a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Your story next week will be Robin's Wrath by Marjorie Lawrence. Audio production, as with this week, will be done by the fantastic Chelsea Davis. Your host will be the one, the only, Mr. Graham Dunlop. In the meantime, I will leave you with this quote from Mr. Rollins himself. They mistake kindliness for weakness, but you know the difference. You've been the brunt of their weakness for years, and strength is something you know a little bit about because you had to be strong to keep yourself alive. Stay strong, folks. We'll see you next week.
It's a PseudoPod. It's a big foot.
It's all about podcasts these days.